Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining me today. I have my friend Natalie McCabe on with me. Natalie, welcome back. Thanks for coming on another episode with me.
No problem. We always have so much fun.
I know. I'm so excited. Okay, so just remind everyone a little bit about who you are, what you do, and then we'll dive into our topic.
Awesome. Okay. Well, I'm Natalie McCabe, and I've been a school teacher for 30 years and have run some childcare businesses and a kinder music franchise. So my whole life has been about being around children and parents. So I've just decided in the last year to become a parent coach. So I really love working one-on-one with parents to help them, give them solutions, get out of the mode of surviving to thriving, because parenting is the hardest job in the world. And I know parents need support. I was a single mother myself for 16 years. So I know all those struggles. My children are older now, so I feel like I now can dedicate the time to help others.
Yes, ma'am. And so, for our listeners, the episode we did together a few weeks ago, I'm going to link to that because we talked more about your story, how you got into this, your experiences with being a single mom, and how you worked from, teaching the education field into coaching. And you and I had a really, really fun conversation about, working with parents who are co-parenting from two different households who have gone through divorce. So we had a really, really great conversation. So I'll encourage everyone to go back and listen to that. But so
Yeah.
today so before we hit record, we were talking about all the topics that we want to incorporate into today's episode. And we probably won't get to all of them, but there's just so much to get to. When we're talking about parenting, whether it's us as parents and trying to be the best parents we can be and taking care of ourselves as parents and having healthy relationships with our kids, teaching our kids to be good children and just nurturing their personalities, nurturing them into being strong adults in the future. Like there's so much there. So, of course, we have a million topics, but we decided that we really want to focus in on how kids, and you can refine this topic with me when we jump into it, but we actually had a hard time labeling it because there's so much into it. We're talking about technology, but not the pros and cons of technology, and you shouldn't let your kids use technology. Like we're not lecturing you, we're not telling you our children have used technology, my child uses technology, but really looking at what are the patterns that we see in our children when they use technology, when they don't use technology, what behaviors we observe, the changes in behaviors for better or worse when they're using it, when they're not using it, and then how do we support and help our children because technology is in their world. We can't live without it. So it's more about how do we manage technology and how do we support our children when they have very natural physiological, chemical, emotional reactions to the use of technology. Did I explain our topic well?
Yes, you did. Excellent.
Okay.
Excellent. There's so much to it, right?
Yes, ma'am. Lead us in. Why are we talking about this, Natalie?
Well, I think it's not well known, and the research isn't being put out there as much as I would like to see it out there about the effects of. First, let's start with young children under the age of 2. Um, there's so much going on there. There's so many neural pathways being constructed. They do not need to be exposed to any screens whatsoever. That really does inhibit the right neural pathways to connect when they're just being fed information. Children under 2 need human interaction. They need eye contact. They need touch to develop those neural pathways. So, what I'm hearing, what I see in our society today is a lot of parents, I know you're overwhelmed. I know you're tired. Guys, I was a single mother, okay? Ages 18 months and 3 by myself. So I get it, but it should not ever be used as a pacifier, right? Like just to give your child something to quiet them down. Children for centuries and centuries and centuries have been able to find something to do that they don't really even need the toys, right? If they're with their parent and just doing your daily things, you're folding laundry, baby's there with you, you're doing dishes, baby's there with you. That is enough for them because they are so interested in the world around them. And that's really what they need to learn is the world
Mhm.
around them, you know. But with too much, it delays language development if it's too much screen time. You know,
Mhm.
it delays their cognitive ability, their fine motor skills, so large motor skills, like all of those things that young toddlers are supposed to be doing. If they're sitting there passively, they're not getting a chance to do all of those things to promote healthy brain development, right?
Mhm. Yeah, and it's interesting because everything in moderation, right? Like I think to clarify, yes, in ideally, we would not provide any technology for our children under 2. The reality is we do. And there are
Yep.
a lot of things that are created specifically for that age group, colors, shapes, certain very just yeah, they're very directed shows for that age group. And so what you and I are saying is, or and I don't want to speak for you because you've read more of the research on this than I have. What I hear you saying is it should be 0. What realistically we're going to do is we're going to let our children look at
Yeah.
technology. I did fully, honestly, but I did not use it as a I did not our kiddo did not sit in front of it for hours and hours. It was here's a little bit, because the reality is I do have to go do something and I do need to
Yeah.
take care of something, and it is absolutely a support, a help to me as a parent, um as something that helps me with entertaining my kid or whatever. But it's also something I have to be super careful of. Like, what is
Yeah.
it? How much time? What am I
Yes.
using it for? How is my
That's
child reacting to it? So kind of give us
exactly.
are you saying 0, 0 and no,
Well,
or what are we saying?
that is the ideal. But if you can't do
Yes.
that, listen. Everything you just said. What is it that they're watching?
Yes.
How long is it that they're watching it? And look at the purpose of it. Is it because your child is screaming and this is going to shut them up?
Yeah.
Okay? That's not, please don't do that, right?
Yeah.
We have to learn to help co-regulate and help the child manage their emotions.
Yep.
The screen, that, but if you need to do it, and a cool idea is, nature scenes, pictures, like a slideshow of your family and people that they know and love, and pets, and that's set to music, right,
Mhm.
on a screen. Like, there's other ways that you can get creative, that it doesn't need to be big, flashy, fast, and
Yes.
I know there's shows being created now that are much slower, that are, they say better, but keeping it within your family and familiar objects, and you know what I mean,
Yeah.
that nature,
Yeah.
those sort of things, set
And
to
even,
music.
yeah, take it even a step further. Put technology on the side. Children need variety, right? Children
Hmm.
need different objects and colors, and children that thrive are given a lot of stimulus, right? Like
Yeah.
different colors, different things. So if all you did is you sat your kid in front of, laying down, and they have their little mobile above their bed, and that's the only thing they saw, that would also be damaging to your child. They need more than that. They need
Yeah.
different things to look at. That's why colors are a big part of children's toys, because we do need to have lots of different things that stimulate their cognitive development and their neural pathways and all of the things. But so if we are, to your point, if we're using technology, are we using the kind of things, the imagery, the nature? Like, it's not that handing your kid an iPad that has beautiful pictures is bad for them. It's using it too much and using it for the wrong reasons is a problem. But also, let's kind of transition into what you were saying about the loud and all the kind of you used the word when we were offline, that it's the assault
The
of
assault
all
of
these
the
things. So
images
yeah, so we're
flashing, changing.
clarifying it's not that the tech itself in and of itself is not the issue. It's the kind of things we're exposing our children to. So walk us
Yeah.
through that.
Absolutely. So, well, you know what? I'm going to start with a little story about my own son. So, I kept technology very limited when mine were young, and we had to stay at a friend's house for a couple of weeks. There was mold in our home. That's a whole other story. Anyway, and so her children were a couple of years older, and my son had never seen the cartoon Spider-Man before. And after watching it for 3 days, you wouldn't believe the behavior change I saw in my son. He started kicking and punching and picking on his sister. And, I was literally dumbfounded. Like my jaw hit the floor. And so of course I dialed it back. Right. But that obsession lasted with him for like 2 years. He had to have a Spider-Man costume, all Spider-Man clothes. The physical aggression, I got that damped down, but that image of this was in his head, like, whoa, right? Like and that was 3 days of watching like a 30-minute show, right? Like it's something we just want to be very cognizant of what we're showing. And especially so when they get older in that 3 to 5 year age group, it's important that we sit down and we are with them with what they're watching and talking to them about what they're watching, of course, on their level. So I was coaching another parent, and she had a 2.5-year-old, and she was reducing the screen time. And I said, well, when you do watch one of his favorite shows, start asking him questions. He has pretty good language and pretty smart guy for 2.5. And she looked at me and she was kind of like, what? Are you serious? I'm going to talk to my 2.5-year-old about the show he's watching. I said, yeah, we'll just try it. Right. Well, you wouldn't believe what happened. After about a week, so I asked her to ask him, like, what do you think this character's feeling? Or what do you think is going to happen next? Like, just, curious questions that are kind of on his level. Well, after a week of doing that, he started asking her questions about what he was watching.
Wow.
So, technology can be used as a tool to develop some of the critical thinking and some of that creativity. Well, as they get older, you can just get more creative with the questions, right? Like, what do you think would be a better ending for this show? Or, if there was a sequel, what do you think it was going to be? Right. I mean,
Yeah.
it's all in that teaching and being present. I mean, I'm not saying sit with your kid as they watch every single show every, whenever. But I mean, if you take 5 to 10 minutes a day, even to be involved, to see what they're interested in. And, I also encourage parents, if they're having any difficulties with this, yes, you got to set limits, but depending on their age, but if you really get into their world and what they're truly madly, deeply interested in that are on these screens, then you can take it and use creative ways to take whatever they're getting from that show or game or whatever. Get creative and brainstorm with your friends or find a group online to how can I bring that same kind of similar experience into this 3D world
Yeah.
to develop their imagination and their creativity and, all of those things. Because that's, in order to have that balance, right?
Yeah.
It's so important.
It is. And I have so many thoughts and stories going through my mind. I'll tell you a fun one. When Tristan, our son, he's 12, when he was younger, the game on the Switch, Animal Crossing. So it's all about, you dig things up, you use your shovel and your, just different tools. And we used to have some property in Oklahoma, and we were building some stuff. And so before, when we'd be driving out there, it's like a 2-hour drive, I would take pieces of paper or note cards and I'd write down, and he'd ask me because I would sit and play with him, and I had my own Switch because I'm a nerd, and we'd play this game together, and I try to be really involved with his games as much as I can because, like, to your point, I want to know what's going on. I want to be sure that it's appropriate, and I want to have something to talk to you about because that's really big in
Absolutely.
your world. And so if I know about it, then that gives us something to connect on. Whether I like it or not, I sit and play as much as I can. And I suck at most games, so it's disappointing. But anyway, so we're driving to this property, and we'd try to engage him and, like, okay, we're going to be out there, and it's going to be boring, but he would ask me about, like, oh, well, it's like Animal Crossing, I can dig stuff up. So I'd take a piece of paper and I'd write down, like, you're gonna go because in the game you hit rocks to get gold, and you dig money up and you dig things up. And so I'd write down, like, okay, you're gonna go and pretend hit this many rocks with your axe and dig up this many this with your this. And they were like little task cards. And he would just be busy forever. And I would have to
Hours.
yeah, and I would obviously be engaged and be like, oh my gosh, you found that, whatever, But it was this, to your point, taking this game, putting it in 3D. And then he was like, can we go to Home Depot and get a shovel? Yeah, we're going to go to
Yeah.
Home Depot and get a shovel, like
Yes.
where they had a little
Yes.
kid shovel. Like, we turned it into this, so it's such a fun game, and we've been able to do that with others. And there are stories I could tell you about how, as a therapist, when we, as a mom who's a therapist, I try to incorporate, lessons and stuff like that. And I've been able to use his games to be like, okay, do you remember this character when he was going through this? That's kind of like what you're doing right now. Or what if your character was going through what you're going through right now? What would he do to get out of this? And that has
Yeah.
been, I see the light bulb in him where he's like, yeah, so I try, but I'm not always great at it. I'm not always great at like connecting, but I do. So I went on a total tangent just to say we can use these things for good, but we have to know what they are. We have to be involved to be able to do
Yes,
that.
absolutely. And have the balance, right? It's the balance, hours and hours a day. It really does have some negative effects on their brain development. And, something we talked about before we got on is about how we all want for our children to have positive self-talk and positive self-esteem. But in order for them to do that, they have to learn how to be inside their heads and have that positive self-talk. And in order to do that, they have to be engaged in an activity for a sustained amount of time, and the attention, a 3D activity, to get through any challenges and get through that critical thinking piece and get to know who they are. And so when they know who they are, they can value who they are. But if they don't know who they are, how can they value who they are? Right.
Yeah.
So it's all about that balance of having those creative and imaginative experiences that will present them with some challenges and to
Yeah.
strengthen their resilience when they come to a problem that they have to solve, right? I
Yeah.
mean, in order, our brain's a muscle. In order to get good at anything, you have to practice. And so if you never have a challenge and never have a problem to solve, well, you're not going to be good at it. You're
Right.
not going to develop
And
that resilience, right?
absolutely. And imagination and creativity, right? So I think of, like, even as parents, one of the things I teach parents the most is parenting is all about being creative. You're
Yes.
constantly having to be, thinking of creative ways to teach this lesson, or calm this child down, or
Mhm.
redirect this child, or get them to do their chores. Like, you're having to think outside the box all the time. But it goes back to being that 1-year old, that 2-year old. You have to have the freedom to play with your environment. If all I'm doing is, if I'm giving this kid one thing and they're just sucked into this one thing, then that imagination, that creative part of their brain doesn't develop the way that it needs to. And when you take it away and you remove technology, you see this completely kind of this unveiling of imagination in children. And so we nurture that, thinking back to when we were little and on long drives. What did we do? We just stared out the window and we thought about things, and we imagined our whatever, or thought about our crush or whatever. Like, you had
Yeah.
music, maybe, like I remember having my Walkman or my CD or whatever, Discman. But that was amazing to just look out the window, listen to music, and just think, and our
Yes.
kids don't do that
and
very
and
much.
it's really, really important. And I have, over my career teaching, I have seen a change and a difference in that,
Yeah.
even the skill of visualization when kids are get into reading chapter books. I've noticed a
Mm,
change. And I'll ask a child, so, what kind of picture are you making in your mind right now over this? And they're like, nothing. I don't
mm.
have a picture right in my mind.
Oh, sad.
Like, so, I mean, that's not every child, I'm just saying, but I
Right.
mean, I've seen an increase
Yeah.
in that, that creative side. Just boredom creates creativity.
Yeah.
It enhances it. So it's okay for them to be bored, right?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
And as parents, again, and one of the other topics you and I were discussing offline was parenting being inconvenient a lot of the time, right? And so
oh, hell
sometimes,
yeah.
yeah, most of the time. So, so to us, like, it is a tool for us, and there's no shame in that. There's no shame in, as a
Yeah,
parent, saying
we're
like,
not,
heck yeah,
that's right.
I want my kid to have technology because it gives me a break, and maybe I have all these other children to take care of, or I'm working, or I have a migraine, and so It's okay. It's okay to use these tools. We just have to, when we can, when we have the energy, or we make the energy, we make the time whenever we can to create balance and give our kids these other things to do. But then, there's this whole other topic of, we also get lost in technology. We get lost in social media and
Yes.
all the things that we're doing there. And so it's this holistic, like, we all have to just be more mindful of what does it do to us. And our focus is, and we're not going to tell you the right or wrong way to manage this. Our focus is, what do you do when you notice a behavioral change or a mood change as a result of being in technology in the wrong way or too much or any of that? So I want to pivot to what you were telling me before we got online. You were sharing some research that you have come
Yeah.
across. Um, let's go into that. You have some things that you could even read for us.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Gloria DiCatano, she wrote a book called Patterns Over Time. And basically it's a combination of 200 different research studies. Just to let your listeners know, it's only 70 pages long. A quick and easy read. She did a very good job at succinctly pulling that research together. It's very serious. We're talking the extended time, kids that don't have balance. Okay, we're not talking about the rest of us that are just trying to manage. But I wanted to. Some parents, I hear from, they're like, "Oh, my kid was just watching this movie for a couple hours, and everything was so quiet and great, and then all of a sudden, boom, they're out of control. They're running around. They're somersaults on the couch. Like, what is that about? They were just so calm." And in one of the research studies, they said that's because their nervous system is being under assault by all these images, right? Doesn't have to be physical. That through their eyes, they're getting information, and it's the lights. So the predictable human consequence is they need that to physically release that pent up energy when they're
Mm,
finally away from the screen. Right.
wow.
So that'll result in running around out of control, especially in young children, because their nervous system can't get the chaos like of sitting there for so long. That energy has to go somewhere. Right.
Yeah.
So, I think it's so individual, right? You have to look at what works for every family. But if you're noticing, so, behaviors like this, then, do your best to try to dial back and see if you can see some changes, because, you know, you, no one wants to be dealing with the running around and the out of control. Right.
Mhm. Yeah.
And a lot of times for young children, I think, and I didn't mention this, the nervous system plays such a big part in that toddler stage. For them to self-regulate and co-regulate. I mean, some children don't just need the hug and the snuggle. Some children do need to move. They need to do heavy work. They need maybe some deep pressure massage, or you know what I mean? Like they might need to jump on a trampoline to get, their nervous system regulated. So it, like I said, there's no one cookie cutter solution for every child is
Mhm.
so different. But when we start to pay attention to our own child and kind of what's happening, we can get some of those creative solutions. But I think I want to go back to your point too. Parents are exhausted. We don't want to, like, it's exhausting, the inconvenience of parenting. Like, come on. How many moms, like, you can't even go to the bathroom by yourself, right? Like, I
Yeah.
get it. Been there, done that, right? So, in order to get yourself into a place where you can handle and even have time to think about any of this stuff or make some changes that you want to make in your family, it comes always back to, can you get 15 minutes for yourself in the day?
Yeah.
Just 15 minutes to sit, breathe, stare at a wall, read a book, paint a postcard, whatever it is for you, because that shows that you're giving yourself that self love. That's why it's
Mhm.
all called self care, and showing yourself that you are worthy. And guess what? When our kids see us taking time for ourselves and valuing ourselves, what do you think they're going to do?
Mm, they'll do it
If
themselves.
they see it and
Hmm.
see it and see it every day, "Oh, no, we can't bug mommy right now. She's doing this
Yeah.
thing for herself."
Yep. They
Right?
respect
So,
it.
but the
Boundaries.
Yes. So,
Yeah.
and that is a big piece of self-care too,
Yeah.
right? Is the setting boundaries, the asking for help, getting support when you need it. It's not just about the bath. I really want to change the name of self-care because I think it's overused and people just, oh yeah, like I don't have time to go for a massage every day. Like it's not about
Yeah.
that. Right? It's
Yeah.
about
My
so much
self-care,
more.
I pop in my headphone and I'm listening to a podcast or an audiobook while I'm doing the dishes.
Yeah,
There we
that's
go.
self-care.
You know. So
Absolutely.
I think that as you were saying that, the thing that went through my mind was something that you're probably going to have to create because you are really good at, like, you've made the journal, right? Which people can learn
Yeah.
about more when they listen to our first episode. But the journal for, parents to be able to communicate about their kids. But here's what I'm thinking you need to make for us. I
Sure, no
think,
problem.
yeah, put it on your list of things, Natalie. Um, it made me think of a get to know your child journal
Mm,
because every one of your kids is
is
going to
different.
need a different, right? So if you have two kids and
Absolutely.
they're both sitting down and watching that same movie, the movie's over,
Mhm.
TV's turned off, one of them might very quietly go and get a snack and go play in the playroom, and the other one's going to start running around and freaking out and doing all kinds of crazy stuff. So if I know my kids and I'm learning and it's constantly changing, so what you knew about them last week is probably going to change for this
Oh,
week, which is why
for
you're going to make
sure.
us a journal. It's how, and what a beautiful kind of exercise to really have this, like, self-awareness, like, I'm gonna really pay attention to my child. I want to learn who my child is, because then later in the future when you're old and alone and you have this journal, you can be like, oh my god, I knew all these things about my
It's
kid, right? But it's like,
yeah,
thinking of, like, if I know my kid is the kid that's gonna really have that need for release, then my plan is, okay, well, I just got 2 hours of a break while they're watching a movie. As soon as that movie's over, we're going to the park, we're
yeah,
out. Or we're going to the backyard and I'm throwing frisbee, ball, dog, whatever.
yes.
Because then I have now created a plan and a strategy to help me kind of help my child regulate, because he can't do it for himself. So I'm responsible for helping my small child regulate themselves, himself or herself or whatever. And if I do this for my kid, with my kid, then when my kid is old enough to, like, understand, then they start doing this for themselves. Like, hey man, I know I need, if I'm going to go see a movie at a friend's house, I'm running home. I'm walking home. I'm not going to get
Yeah.
picked up because I need an outlet, right? And imagine if us as adults, if we understood even that much about ourselves, think of how much we could cope with our anxiety differently, or are just
Absolutely.
overwhelmed, because most of the time we just roll from one thing into the next, and we don't have the time or the brain space to say, did I need a break in between those two things? Did I need to just sit here and take a deep breath for 30 seconds before I faced my child after their
That's
nap,
also
right?
self-care. That is also self-care, noticing what you need as a parent and giving it to yourself, giving yourself the grace to give yourself what you need. Like get rid of the shoulds in the hood is my that'll be my new no
I
more
love it.
shoulds. Right? You have to take care of yourself because you're going to be better for your kids and noticing those patterns. So something I talk about in my book is called the OWL method, OWL.
Okay.
Observe, watch, and listen. And this goes, my book's from toddlers to teens. Literally, this works for them all. And it's the same thing as you were saying. Observe your child, know what their struggles are, watch, see what they need, listen to what's happening in the situation, listening to the words they're saying. And because a lot of issues that we have in parenting, if we have this observation and knowing, then, like you say, we can preempt it. Right. So, just an example, my son, sleeping. It was from the time he was an infant, okay? Sleeping was a challenge and
Hmm.
and so I kind of became like the sleep Nazi. Like I had him on a schedule. I learned to recognize his signs of when he was tired. But here's the thing. His signs when he was tired, everybody else looked like he was having a great time. Arms
Hmm.
start flapping and he's all I knew, I knew just being so in tune with him. I'm like, oh, here we go. We gotta go. I had to scoop him right then. We're going for the nap, and boom, he'd go for the nap and
Wow.
stay down for the nap. That has
Hmm.
been a part of his personality, even at the age of 16. The boy overtired, running in the hose, somersault on the bed. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the
Wow.
same as when he was a toddler.
Yeah.
So some of those, temperaments and patterns do kind of last
Yeah.
throughout. But me knowing that about him, oh gosh, it saved my life. I mean, some people weren't happy. Like, I'd missed weddings because my kid had a nap. But
Mm.
if he got past that overtired point and I didn't put him down, it was a 2-hour fight to get down for a nap because
Yeah.
his nervous system, like, it was too much. And I knew, so I'm like, I'm not wrecking my day. I'm not wrecking my night. No, I know this kid is tired. This kid is going to bed. I don't care what's going on,
Mm-hmm.
because that is for my sanity and it's for his physical and emotional
Yeah.
and everything
Yeah.
development, right?
All of it. All of it.
So,
And I think also it's funny, missed weddings for that. It makes me think of like you do what you have to do to survive. Like and there will always be someone who doesn't like your approach and judges you as a parent and thinks your kid
yeah,
is crazy or that you're to
who
this or you're
cares?
to that. Like, look, at the
Tune them
end of the
out.
day, yeah, you're taking the kid home and having to deal with them and it's your life. Like do what you need to do as long as you're not harming your child, then that's what you need to do. But I think that I love your point of the patterns last over time because yes, although parenting changes and our needs change and as children grow, they change drastically, but there are certain things that stay the same. We all have those stories about our kids who are like, oh, it's always been like that since he was a baby, since she was a baby, she's always been like that. Like, okay, so imagine how big of a gift it would be if we could arm our children with the knowledge of what they need by modeling,
Yes.
helping them get that, creating the boundaries for them to live in that are healthy, and then teaching them that if you do this, you'll be okay. Keeping in mind, of course, that lots of growth comes from chaos and sometimes you just have to roll with it and we help them through. If you miss that nap, all right, well, now it's just crazy, but we now know we're resilient and we can all survive. And the older they are, like your story with the kiddo, the mom talking to the child about the movie, like kids understand on their level, but repetition, repetition. If every day I'm explaining to you why I'm doing this and why you can't do this, it's still not going to prevent them maybe from getting upset, but over time it becomes normal and it
Yeah.
becomes
And the
what they just
boundaries.
know. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, the
And that's our job.
consistency. Exactly. I mean, consistency, I'd have to say, is probably the most important skill that parents can continue to
Yes.
develop. I'm not telling you consistency in what, it's your values, it's your
Yeah.
family. I mean, and I talked about this in our last thing. It's a parent coach. I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm here to help you discover what works for your family, for your personality,
Yes.
for your specific children, right? So, do what, like you said, works for you, and please stop listening to other people.
Yeah.
It, like, really, your intuition, you'll know if you read something in a book, if it settles with you, you'll know, oh, this will work for my kid. Or, so don't just listen to what everybody's saying online or whatever you get.
Mhm.
Every single child is unique. Every parent is unique. Right.
And
So,
even with what we're saying, right? So if you hear us saying, if the listener hears us and we're like, look, it would be great if your kid didn't have technology under the age of 2. First of all, I didn't do that, so I have no room to speak. And again, everything in moderation. Like even if I could do it again, I
yeah,
don't know that I would go zero technology because there are things out there that are if used appropriately, they're totally fine. But if you hear us say that and you're like, that makes me feel like such a terrible parent because I
then
have
stop.
used it. Yeah, that is
Yeah,
not what
no.
we're saying. What are we
No,
saying now?
not what we're saying. We're saying just following those of the research that from the American Pediatric Association. Okay, that's where that comes from.
Yep.
That's not Natalie saying that. That's just the research. But it is in moderation, right?
Yep.
It is just being mindful of, and looking at the reactions of your child and how much time is it, and is this working for your family? And listen, you can get creative. There's other ways to get a break from babies. There's so many amazing activities for toddlers, and like ages under 1 year olds, like, just do a Google search. Like, there's so much out there, having them play with
Mhm.
painting tape, and things that'll keep. I remember my daughter was 6 months old. She played with a paper coffee cup, I swear to you, for like an hour. I was like, wow.
Yes.
right? I mean, you just never know. Like, have some
Be
fun with it.
creative.
You never
Yep.
know what's gonna get their attention, right?
Yep.
Like the pots and pans, the wooden spoons. Like it just, my son played in the cupboard for 45 minutes while I cooked supper when he was
Yeah.
little, right? Like there's
Yeah.
have fun with it. Take the pressure off. We're not here to pressure you guys. Like I just don't want that. Parents are under enough pressure to be the best and be perfect and always feeling like they're not good enough. I know I felt the same way.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be that voice now in their heads to say, it's okay. Nobody's perfect. You're doing the best you can. Just be aware of what you want going forward in your home and just be working towards that in whatever little tiny ways that you can. Like when I'm coaching someone for 10 weeks, they have this issue and this goal, this dream place they want to get to. And they're always surprised but at the end of 10 weeks because they don't feel like any big thing has happened. But what it is these incremental little tiny changes that we work through each week that by the end, it's like we look back and I'm like, oh, look, remember you said you wanted this, 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 and this to change? Look, it has. And they're
Here we
like,
are.
wow, that was cool,
Yeah.
right? Because
Right.
it
Because slow
happens
and
so
steady
slow.
wins the race. Like if it's a big drastic
Absolutely.
change that flips your family upside down, it's not going to work. It
No.
has to be gradual. And okay, so let's as we kind of wind this down, let's segue into another part of this. Um, the what to do when it's a shit show trying to make the change, right? So if I have a kid and this kid is used to being able to take the screen, especially little, and they can't communicate why we're saying no. So if I'm used to handing my 2-year old, 3-year old, 4-year old my phone every time we're somewhere and I need him to be quiet, and now that's not what I want to do anymore. As a mom, I'd like to limit it a little bit. Maybe I want to be creative. We have to prepare ourselves for resistance and
Huge.
reaction. Yeah, it's going to be angry and they're going to fight us because, again, their nervous system is in that fight mode of like, oh my God, I need it. Give me that hit of
It is a hit of
technology.
dopamine. I spoke to another coach the other day and she's doing a talk with parents about how she's using the analogy it's like an alcoholic.
Yes.
Right? And
Yep.
and and I said to her, "You know what? You're right because they feel they need it. It's that hit of dopamine and then the more they have like an alcoholic, the more they need to
Yep.
get that same hit of dopamine, which
Right.
is kind of sad. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so they have to be ready for that resistance. And so I would do some planning beforehand, obviously. And a child that young, they don't have a huge long-term memory, right? So you have to watch how much you're on your phone. Like if it out of sight out of mind at 2 years old, right? So put your phone away and have some other things to be happening. Now as they get older, right, your 3, 4, 5 year olds, I would start with a gradual reduction in the
Mhm.
timing, right? Like, oh, have some other activity planned or bake cookies together, gradually reduce the amount of time, reduce,
Yeah.
and eventually get to what works for your family, whether that's 20 minutes or an hour a day in the evening, like whatever works for your family. But I would definitely suggest doing that gradually. And then
Yep.
older than that, I think, by the 6, 7, 8 and up, have the conversation with them. The kids are not too young at 6 and 7 years old to learn about digital literacy and media literacy. And, literally playing some games and having some fun as you're watching TV together as a family or watching a show, start talking about advertisements. What is the purpose of these? What do you think these guys are trying to do? Trying to tell us? Are they trying to inform us of something? Are they entertaining us? Or do they want us to buy something? I mean, they're never too young to start those conversations, to have them be aware of what they're watching and to think more critically about it. Because by the time the kids are your kids' ages, we really want them to be able to look at something and say, okay, is this a reliable source that I'm looking at right now?
Yeah.
Is this somebody just trying to sell me
Yeah.
something
We want to teach
instead
them
of
to
just
think. Hmm.
with that? And we can use technology as a tool to help them build those critical thinking skills
Yeah.
at those older ages for
Yeah.
sure. it's a,
And,
it's a good tool.
Yeah, and I think that like being prepared to really anger our children, like as a mom of a 12-year-old. Oh my God, if I want to set limits for this kid, I typically am going to be faced with but why? Whatever. And so I do try to the best of my ability, my husband and I, hey, guess what? Moving like tomorrow, we're going to take a break. Like you can play your game a little bit in the morning, or you can check your phone for this, and then we're going to take a break and we're going to go do this. Or you know what? We can watch a movie as a family. It's technology, but it's different. You're not on a game. Or we can play board games, or we can go take the dogs for a walk. Or you know what? Go play by yourself in your playroom or in your room. Go read a book, whatever. And so if I give him a heads up, he's fine with it. Sure, he
Yeah.
might ask to play, but if I yank it away and I'm like, that's it, you're done. Oh my God, I wouldn't want someone to
Oh,
do that to me. And there have been
no.
times where, as a punishment to something, it's like, yeah, dude, get off the game. It's done. And I will piss him off. But you know what? I always tell him, if I'm not making you mad at least once a day, then I'm probably not
Yep.
parenting you right. I'm too soft.
Hmm.
And I am like, let me tell you, I take pride in also knowing that I am a balanced parent. I am a strong mom, but I am a fun mom. And
Yeah.
that is important to me because I do not want the only interaction that we have to be when I am parenting you. I also want to play and I want to have fun and I want to be goofy and silly, but you better believe we all know who mom is and you will respect me. And
Yes.
if you cross that boundary because you've been talking to your buddies all day and it slips into you're talking to me like a little bit of a snot, you better believe you're going to
Yeah.
hear about it, but then we're going to go right back to being fun and fine. But prepare your child. And he knows when he takes breaks and can come out of that haze, he will even make comments about this was so much fun. I'm really glad we hung out. Like he experiences life and our relationship a very different way that it's beautiful and it's sad at the same time that we have to work hard to achieve that, but we do. We
Yeah.
just do, but it has to be a priority. And it is, and that ties into parenting is inconvenient. The easy thing would be for me to be like, dude, just go play your game. I
Yeah.
don't have the energy. But that is not my role as a parent. It can't be. Some days, okay, whatever. I don't feel good.
Yeah.
But other
Of
days, like
course.
I cannot be who I am as a mom.
Well, and what I love is that, you're really highlighting the importance of connection first over correction,
Yeah.
right? Since you have that relationship with him, then, there's not going to be as much pushback. It's all about connecting first. So, any parents I work with that are having these issues, I will always go to, so how often are you connecting before we get them off the screen? Like, how are you connecting with them each day, every week? Right? Like, that's the focus. What you focus on grows.
Yes.
Right. So you focus on that positive relationship, you focus on the wonderful, unique qualities of your child and just love those and encourage those. Then we deal with talking to them about issues and
Mhm.
struggles when they're older. Obviously,
Yeah.
the younger ones, it's a bit of a different approach, but it's connection always over correction for sure. And it
Always.
does take time and energy to do that. And we're not going to be able to do it 24/7, 365. We're already on deck 24/7, 365, right? So, we can't be any one way. We have to be compassionate to ourselves, just the way we would be when our child's having a meltdown. The
Yep.
same thing is when we're not having our best parenting day. Okay, guess what? Tomorrow's another day. Or,
Mhm.
if we're having the worst day ever, like there's some days that I remember just, I did one thing today. Good job, Natalie.
Yeah.
Good job. Good job. Pat myself in the back. I did
Yes.
one thing today and I had to be okay with that
Yeah.
or I would have lost my mind.
Yes, ma'am.
Just
Yes.
being, I'm just being real. Like,
Yeah.
let's be real. This is the hardest job in the world. And I don't want parents to forget that. And, I don't want them to feel guilty. Just the fact that they're listening to this and they're considering some of the things and considering making they're already an awesome parent just by listening, just by making some considerations of what we're saying. That just shows you're awesome. You're the
Yeah.
bomb.
Yes. And okay, I'm gonna wrap up with this. What before we recorded, we were talking about how parents feel helpless and frustrated. We see these in some of the online groups that why is my kid having so many meltdowns, so many behavioral issues? And this to kind of bring this and tie it with the pretty bow, take a look at what your kids um, detox from technology looks like, because it could be as simple and as complicated as that, right? So it could just be that
Yeah.
you need to help your child adapt back to 3D land, you know? It could be that you need to set boundaries and have different rules about how much technology or what they're watching, or it could just be that you need to help them self-regulate again, creating other things that they're going to do after they're done with technology to let some of that out. Learning, are they emotional? Are they whatever? So take this as an empowerment tool of like, okay, just what do you think your kid needs? What is going on? Take your emotional reaction to them off the table for just a second and just observe what is happening. And if the more you can
Yeah.
connect, the more you can be tuned into that frequency, the more you'll be able to create a solution or help guide them to a calmer place. So that, I hope that's what everyone took away from this, is that's what we were
Yes.
trying to say.
Yes. Observe, watch, and listen. And you can derail some of these things before they happen. Not always, but
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yes. Hey, power. Okay, so I'm going to link to our previous episode and we'll link to all where people can find you. Tell us real quick, you live in your website. Tell us about your
Yes,
website.
I live in my website. I'm kind of probably going to be doing some changes to it soon. Just as, just as more clients are coming on board. But it's nataliemccabe.com. So everybody can book a call, just 3 half-hour chit chat about what's going on to see if we're a match, to see if I can help you, right? I mean, not everybody's a match, but I just offer that to help people solve whatever struggles that they're having. I'm also on Instagram and on Facebook under Natalie McCabe, parent coaching on Facebook, and Natalie McCabe official on Instagram. So as a
Love it.
teacher for 30 years, the whole social media thing is a slow roll. Okay. I wasn't allowed to post. So,
Yeah, we're trying to
um,
catch
so
up. It's great.
yeah, we're trying to catch up, but I am enjoying, I can't believe I am enjoying interacting with a bunch of people. So it's great.
Good. I'm so glad. This was so fun. Thanks, Natalie. And then we still have other topics. So I think we'll just do another one here pretty soon because, we have too much fun to not.
I know we do. We didn't even get to our parenting styles
I
conversation.
know.
So
I know.
yeah,
I
that's a
don't feel
good
like
one.
we talked about inconveniences of parenting enough. I'd like to talk
As
about that more. I
oh,
have a lot
we
of
could
comments.
Yeah, there's a big long list. I mean, really, get your listeners to send in what are their biggest inconveniences,
That's a great idea.
and we could go through them for sure, right? And
Love it.
complain. Like it could be the
Yes.
vent session because
Yes.
all moms need to do that. Like
Oh my
let's
gosh.
get real. So one of my thoughts is I want to do like a weekly call with, with clients and people that are interested, and I'm going to call it Wine Wednesday, but not the wine you drink, the
I
WHINE
love
wine.
it.
Because
Love
everybody
it.
needs time to vent about this stuff, to release it and let it go and have a laugh, right? I
So
mean, the
fun.
lighter we take this stuff,
Oh yeah.
the
We're
better
all in
off
it
we are.
together. We might as well lean on each other.
Yeah, exactly.
Love it.
Exactly.
All right, friend. Thank you. To be continued. I'll talk to you soon.
All right.
All right.
Take care. Okay.
Bye.
Bye.